Hi, everyone. Welcome to the African American Theater Program's podcast, The Beat, Black Experiences in Art and Theater. My name is Sydney Edwards.
And I'm Tyler Tate.
And today we have with us Larry Muhammad, who is a playwright and producer, and he's the producing director of the Kentucky Black Repertory Theater. Larry, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Glad to be with you.
So glad to have you with us. This is our very first podcast, so thank you for joining us and helping us inspire some students here.
Oh, yeah, man. I was saying I've worked with students, many students at the University of Louisville, including you and Tyler, in my first play, Double V, about a crusading black news band during the Second World War who helped persuade Truman, President Truman, desegregate the military. Both Nefertiti Burton and Lundina Thomas directed it.
Wonderful. Yeah, you've been around and you've been a part of our program for quite some time, so we're really grateful for that.
Oh, man, I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with y'all, man. That program puts out some awesome talent.
Yes, and we are 28 years strong this year. Can you believe it?
Oh, man. Congratulations. That's a wow.
Yeah, thank you. So I really wanted to just take some time today to kind of dig into your story. The purpose of our podcast is really to just tell Black stories in the arts, in theater, because we all have such different paths. And I think it's important for people to know there's not one right way to do this thing.
Right.
So if you would just tell me a little bit about what you do in theater, like your specialty. How would you describe yourself in the arts?
I'm a playwright. I'm just a writer. I mean, our little theater company, Kentucky Black Repertory Theater, is African American bluegrass history on stage. It's a 501c3 arts organization. I started basically to produce my own shows because rarely were other people producing them. I've had some luck, over time. I did my first one in 1999, I guess, the one I was talking to you about.
Yeah.
The second one was Jockey Jim.
I was in that
Jimmy,
one.
Yeah, you in that one. And then I think I had an opportunity to do one about Henry Bain, and that kind of I had good success with that one, and with one Buster. It was a musical about the civil rights crusader, social justice crusader, Reverend Lewis Coleman. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me that I could really get some support and build an audience with these history plays about bluegrass African American historical figures. And then we also run another brand called Cisco Montgomery. Actually, that was the first name of the company, because when I first started writing, I was a reporter at the newspaper, and I adopted that as a pen name. And then, just to make it legit, I gave it a phone number, email address, a bank account, and a post office box. And I started writing on that, just different plays that I didn't think that would, because I didn't want any confusion about the Larry Muhammad byline. Mm-hmm. I wrote some plays under Cisco Montgomery. And they're like Murder the Devil, which is like a homegrown terrorism play. Booty of the Year is about two sisters. It's a sibling rivalry play. Two sisters who are professional wrestlers, jealous of each other's careers, in love with the same man. God-forsaken, about a televangelist who has a crisis of faith on live TV. So I'm basically a playwright, and I produce because 80% of the time, that's the only way people get to see my work.
I feel you.
And Larry, could you tell us a little bit more about exactly how you got started with playwriting? Was this something that was a childhood hobby, or something that you more so came into in your adult life? How did you get started in that realm?
I had always been interested in the arts. I've been writing news. I was a journalist. I was trained as a journalist. That's how I got here, working for the Courier-Journal.
Okay.
I was a Metro reporter and a features writer. But when I was in school, even before I pursued journalism, I was always interested in the arts. I was in a theater program in Oakland, California, at Laney College. This is many years ago. Laney College is a community college in Oakland, California. And I got into the theater program there, and I did, I don't know if people remember Jimmy Garrett. We on the Night. It was about a scene from a street battle during the Revolution. And I kind of got into that. And then there was another one called Court Decision, and it was about this episode in California where I'm blanking on dude's name now. Black Panther. They tried to liberate them from a court hearing. Shotguns with nooses hung around people's necks and let them out. And that was called Court Decision. And I was kind of always went to theater. When I got here, I subscribed to Actors Theater. And I was kind of, writing on the side. And then I came across the story of Frank Stanley. This is the longtime publisher and editor of the Louisville Defender. And I had heard his name. I worked for the Defender when I was in Chicago. Before I went to graduate school, I was working at the Defender as a reporter and an editor. And Frank Stanley was one of the main managers of the Defender chain. There were like 5 newspapers in the Defender chain. It was a Michigan Chronicle. There were a couple of papers in Ohio. Chicago was like the flagship. Tri-State Defender was Memphis, which is my hometown. Okay. And the Louisville Defender. And Frank Stanley was one of the main managers who would go around to these papers, and if they had like issues, he would straighten them out. And then he was like a really strong presence here. He took over this paper. First, like I said, it was part of the Defender chain. And then he took it over. And I had an assignment when I was a newspaper reporter to write a profile of Frank Stanley for One Black History Month. And all this memory and the experience of hearing about him came flooding back to me. And I decided I wanted to write a biography of him. That turned into, and I did a lot of research, and it turned into a solo play. It turned into a solo play. And when Nefertiti and Akram got here, I think I reviewed Flying West, which is one of the African-American Theater Program productions. And I just told Nefertiti that, hey, I write plays on the side. She said, oh, really? I said, yeah, I got one. And she liked it. And that's how the playwriting got started.
Yeah, she's really good for cultivating new playwrights and new work. She loves new works. That's one of the things I really appreciate about her.
Yeah, she's given me some, she gave me Gary Bryce, who was one of the main actors in Murder the Devil.
Gotcha.
That's how I got in touch with him. And then he played Jimmy Wingfield.
Yeah, I was there for that. Okay. So, Larry, what do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have about what you do? A lot of times, people outside of the industry think everything that we do is super glitzy and glamorous-y. But I know the plight of a playwright must be even different from an actor. So could you talk about some of those misconceptions?
I always say that playwrights at the bottom of the food chain in theater. I know a lot of actors would disagree with me on that. Playwrights typically don't get paid. People take their work without credit or acknowledgement sometimes. It's just difficult. I think people tend to look at arts in this country as something that's really not worth fooling with. I mean, there are a certain amount of people, like the theater, for instance. The theater audience, that's a certain audience. It's not the general public, not at all. Opera, ballet, all of this, you have niche audience and the general public because, we don't have national funding for any of our arts like other countries do, because we are mercantile. Talk about the United States, we're a mercantile economy, and it's all about the money. And if foundations and stuff, don't give us money and get tax write-off, we can't survive on ticket sales. I mean,
Right.
even Actors Theater, which is like the big house. I mean, none of us can survive on ticket sales. We have to get financing. So I think people look at writers, and then people tend to think, from my experience, people tend to think that anybody can write. So, you know, the fact that you're a writer doesn't mean nothing. It's just anybody can do that, which is not true.
No.
That's not true. I mean, this is why we have the African American Theater Program. People in the arts are professional and professionally trained. Writers, actors, directors, set designers, sound designers, costumers, these are all professions. And I think people kind of tend to look at it like it's not important, and that it's, you know, anybody can do it. And, you know, a lot of people do try it without training.
Yeah.
But, the ones who succeed, I mean, you can always look at August Wilson, who is the greatest black playwright that ever lived so far.
Yeah.
He didn't get no training.
No.
He was a poet. He was just James Baldwin,
Yeah.
who we're working on a play with now. He dropped out. I think he got out of high school, but he didn't finish college. He was just determined. I mean, a lot of times artists know how to, even before they go to school. Like I got an advanced degree in journalism because that helped me get a job. But before I even went that route, I was reading and writing. I mean, if you get into it, you know what it takes. You got to read. You got to write. If you're a playwright, you got to see as much theater as you possibly can. You got to read as much theater as you possibly can. And I didn't really want to be a producer, but actors, August Wilson told me not to produce anymore. That
Really?
wasn't my job. He came down here one time doing piano lesson, and people were crowded around him. And this is after I had written my first play, and I kind of elbowed my way to the front of the line and said, "Oh, I'm a big fan. I'm a journalist trying to turn myself into a playwright." And to get my first play up, I had to beg all of this support and raise all this money and basically produce. He said, "Don't do that anymore."
Really?
Yeah. He said, "That's not your job." He said, "Your job is to write plays." I'm thinking, well, that's easy for you to say because everybody's doing your work. And I asked him, I said, "How many plays did you write before you got one produced? How many full-length plays?" He said, 5. He said, and I walked in there like, "What took you so long?" Because you have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will believe in you.
Yeah.
There's another influential, like a theater legend, Woody King Jr., who did one of my plays off Broadway.
Yeah.
He told me that I needed to produce. He said, "You can't send me no." This is way before he decided to do my play about America Rocker. I was like sucking up to him, trying to get him to notice my work. I was seeing him at the National Black Theater Festival and stuff, and I would like lurk around and wait till there was a moment where he was by himself, and I would scurry on over there and have coffee with him and stuff. And I was trying to get him to. I had a play in the Reader series. I was trying to get him to come to, and he was somehow aware that I hadn't been sending my plays around. The ones that I was writing under Cisco Montgomery when I was still a reporter. And he said, "You should stop sending your plays around the country like you some kind of big-time playwright because ain't nobody going to do them." He said, "You can't send me no plays." And I said, "Well, what should I do?" He said, "Work the theaters in your own community. Build a reputation in your own community as somebody other theater professionals want to work with. And build an audience of people who will come and see your plays." And at first, I was kind of put off by that because of what August Wilson had told me.
Yeah.
And then there was kind of a rude rejection of but it turned out to be some of the best advice I got because having to work with actors, having to work with designers, having to go out and find a venue, it taught me so much about being a dramatist, about all the nuts and bolts of I mean, I was able to envision plays better because I know what it took to get them up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of which, while we're talking about the various plays that you've done and how they come about, what is your favorite project or favorite projects that you've worked on, and why?
I think my very best play was Murder the Devil. It's really edgy. It's about unlikely heroes, a black street gang that foils a terrorist plot and sets a hostage free. We used to try to do that around 9/11. I mean, I try to do a lot of my shows around times when you can get attention from the general public. Like I said, there's a theater audience and there's a general public. So, like, and I think Jockey Jim is a good play too. It's a pageant. It's big. It's like 20 people in it, which, you know, that's kind of gets difficult to be produced unless you're in a big. But the point is, we always try to do that around Derby time because people are thinking about horse racing. Then there are people, you know, the whole thing about black jockeys come up. When we did the Henry Bain show as part of the New Albany Bicentennial. But, yeah, I think Murder the Devil, I think that was my best written play, the play that I wrote best. I mean, I try to do a good job on all of them. I mean, we did a musical about Sweet Evening Breeze, the famous black drag queen, that I thought was, I had forgotten how well I had written that play until we got it to rehearsal because I had written it maybe 3 years before I was able to get it up, and I kind of, you know, it was in a drawer somewhere. But then when I went to rehearsal and heard it read, I did a good job on that. So, though you know, like I said, Murder the Devil, which wasn't a history play, I liked Booty of the Year, which is about professional wrestlers that you could get into. When we did it here, a bunch of people from Ohio Valley Wrestling came to see it.
Oh, nice.
Our costumer. Yeah. This is the point I'm making is if you can do stuff that attracts the attention outside of the theater community, you can grow the audience. Yeah. Maybe not permanently, but for that project, because our costumer was a person who was doing costumes for Ohio Valley Wrestling. And then we paid her, but I think we gave her some tickets or something, and then a bunch of people from Ohio Valley Wrestling came to see it. So yeah, those two, I would say. Looking for Leroy, it was about black theater, actually. It's about Mary Baraka. That was the one that Woody King Jr. produced off Broadway. Did 26 performances of it, paid me. I mean, it was such a new experience.
Yeah.
That somebody wanted to do my work off Broadway. And the way that operates, they send you a contract, tell you the dates that they're going to do it, how much they're going to pay you for each performance, send you the check, tell you we need you to be here this and that and the other day. Here's your plane ticket, your hotel, or book that stuff and we're going to reimburse you. This had never happened to me.
That's nice though.
It was but that was one that I liked. And the one we're working on now for Derby City Playwrights about James Baldwin, I really liked the writing in that. I mean, it's, you never know. I mean, when I wrote Looking for Leroy, I had no idea that it was going to be such a big thing. It was an Adelco Award winner. It swept the Adelco Awards.
That's wonderful.
It was at National Black Theater Festival. It was kind of like the hit of the festival. But when I wrote it, I was just trying to do a good job. And like I said, I had been sucking up to Woody King Jr. and during research, I found out that he was the main collaborator of Baraka, who was not my literary hero, Mary Baraka. I met him a couple of times. But
what was that like?
I was scared of him. And I was always, the title refers to me always trying to be like him and not being able to do it because he would change his philosophy. Like when I first came up on him, he was a poet. He was a beat poet, and it was during the hippie era, and I was out in the Bay Area, and I fooled around with the Black Panthers, writing for the Panther paper, and you're just doing poetry, like I said, at Laney College in Oakland, doing theater, just being in the arts. And he spoke to me. I mean, his poems spoke to me, and so I just tried to kind of emulate him and be like him. And then as soon as I kind of got a handle on his beat poems, he became a Black nationalist. So I tried to make that adjustment. Matter of fact, the reason I got involved with the Nation of Islam, because I read an interview with him in Black World, Old Negro Digest, where he said the Nation of Islam had the best program for Black people. I had been seeing Nation of Islam people, some of our neighbors when I was growing up and all of this. I never really paid much attention. I was like everybody else. I wouldn't buy the paper. I would kind of shun them. But then when he said that, I went straight to the mosque and got involved.
Wow.
And then, And then once I kind of got my mind around that, he turned into a communist. And so he comes, the first time I meet him, and a bunch of people, I mean, talking about August Wilson was one of his acolytes. August Wilson would do even before he started writing, August Wilson would put on his plays in Pittsburgh. People made pilgrimages to Newark to like sit at Baraka's feet. So I was in Chicago, and Baraka, there was a Black Writers Conference that I was kind of on the periphery of the organizing of it, and Baraka was the main draw. So when he came, it was like a big press conference, and I was a journalist, so I asked him a question. I was like brokenhearted. I said, you know what, you used to be about the raising the conscience of the Black people, and now you're a communist? And then he looked at me and said, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, you the big intellectual. And then he made some kind of joke about me. It's referencing the play. He made some kind of joke, and everybody laughed, and he moved on. He didn't even answer it. And then I was dating this woman who was also a writer. She's a Fran Jeffries. I can mention her. She's an editor at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So we were dating and just talking about, she's the editor, I was a writer, we was talking about our literary influences. I said, my man is Amiri Baraka. She said, well, it's my cousin.
What?
Man, and my crush grew big. I mean, we got married.
Oh,
and the reason I'm mentioning that, because I used to go to family reunions, and I would see Baraka at family reunions and be too afraid to talk to him.
Oh, wow. That
we would be at the house where everybody gathered. And part of the reason was he was writing all the time. He would go off and write. He would go off and lock himself in a room and write. And then when he came out, he'd be playing with the kids and stuff. But then I was trying to stalk him, and I kind of saw him go in this room, and I was going to go in there. And when I went in there, it was all the young men in the family was sitting around on the floor and listening to him. And then I felt like I was intruding. I mean, I was an in-law, and I was a little older than them and stuff. And so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. And I don't know, I was thinking maybe he might remember that little exchange in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
Or I might say something stupid, because he was a deep brother, and then the other time I met him was at the Million Man March.
Okay.
I referenced that in the play. He spoke at the Million Man March, and me and my son was there, and I just went up to him and reminded him that I was married to his cousin, and this is my son and stuff like, but I had three. So the play was kind of like the relationship I wished I had with him.
Got you.
And it was set up as an intern who is coming to work for his literary idol, and they get into an argument about the aesthetics of Black theater.
Ah, okay. I could see that. So Larry, you're writing, you're producing. What would you say is the hardest part of what you do? Either the writing part or the producing part, or both. What's the hardest thing?
I don't know that any of it's easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes I and other people too, compare my plays to they say my journalism is affect the way I write plays, and I know journalism is a really more formulaic, but there's an art form in theater. There's a form that you have to follow when you're writing plays. You have to have story arc. You have to have conflict. You have to develop the characters, and there are times within the play. I mean, which scenes that you need to use. But the producing, it's like calling around, asking people for money, calling around and seeing if you can get actors to work with you. I mean, the first thing you got to do is get a venue. Yeah. And, I mean, after I did Jockey Jim, I began to get some support. And, just a couple $1,000s here and there. And that kind of forced me to become a 501c3, because then it enables you to get foundation grants. A lot of times, even Fund for the Arts sometimes. Okay. The grants they give out, you have to be 501c3. So I don't know that any of it's easy. I don't know any of it's more difficult. But I think people, you mentioned misconceptions. I think one of the misconceptions of people outside of the arts think that, you can be a one-hit wonder. And there are some, like Wit. Wit was a play that a teacher wrote that, I think that was her first play. She shopped around for years and years, but then it went to Broadway. I don't know if it won a Pulitzer Prize, but it was a big prize winner. But that's an anomaly. Most of what's going to happen is you're going to have to put in a lot of work. You're going to have to commit to it as almost like a mission. If you're going to become a writer, or if you're going to become a theater artist, it's probably good that you know a little about the acting, the directing. I mean, you can concentrate on the writing or you can concentrate on the acting, but you have to commit to it as a profession and a mission, and you're going to take years. You're going to have to put in work. It's going to be a whole lot of competition. You're going to have to do a whole lot of writing plays and send them off. Like Art Wilson said, you got to believe in yourself. You're going to have to be doing a lot of auditions. You're going to teach. You're going to have to, be dealing with syllabuses and stuff like that, and trying to mold your students. It's not easy, but if you commit to it, you get a lot of fulfillment. I mean, and the way I look at writing, that's, the fact that I did it and I was able to complete it and I did the best I can, that's the biggest enjoyment I get, because 9 times out of 10, ain't nobody going to produce it. I'm doing it because I want to be the best writer that I can be. I want to keep on writing, keep on doing it. I mean, I ain't going to win no Pulitzer Prize or nothing like that. I ain't going to win no. I mean, in the back of your mind, you hope that you might get a Broadway play and stuff, but no, that's not the reason that you're doing it. The reason you're doing it is because you think you have something to contribute, and you're committed to carrying that out. And it's going to take years. You got to learn and you got to grow. First time out the gate, I was kind of lucky. My first play that I wrote got produced because it was about a local historical figure that everybody knew about. And, the University of Louisville got involved with it. The theater program got involved with it. The Louisville Defender got involved with it. And I think it helped me because I have been, people accepted that I could write, because I had been writing at the newspaper for like 20 years. So when people saw the name Larry Muhammad, someone was like, So you're a playwright now. They kind of laughed at me like, okay, now you done turned to a playwright. So I had to kind of earn some respect in the theater community because people accepted, yeah, okay, he can write, but I mean, now he gonna write plays after all these. So I had that advantage, but again, even with that advantage, it takes years to kind of master your craft. If ever, it's always a practice.
If ever.
You ain't gonna never get perfect, but you have to put in a lot of time and effort, and it's not that it's hard. That's just what it is. Anything in life, you have to make a commitment to it, and you have to follow through.
I can attest to that. Yeah.
And with all that being said, is there anything that you wish you, is there anything that you wish you knew when you were first starting?
Yeah, just everything that I learned. I don't know, so I didn't go to school. I didn't study. Maybe if I should have gone to school, like I said, when I was undergrad out in California, I was doing plays and stuff, but it wasn't, I was kind of almost looking at myself like a novelist or a short story writer. I was just in the arts as a writer. And all the writers I admired, they did it all. I mean, talk about Baldwin. Plays, novels, short stories, essays, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I was trying to do that. But just in terms of the theater, I think it would have helped me if I had gotten into a university program. That's kind of what helped me with the journalism. Although, like I said, by the time I went to graduate school, I had been working at mainstream newspapers. I just wanted to advance, and so I went and got a master's degree. But I think in theater it would have helped me a whole lot. I mean, I would have learned a lot of things that I had to like learn on the fly or learn on the job, or just stumble into it. If I had like enrolled in the African American theater program with an emphasis on playwriting, I think I would have learned a lot of the technique. I would have learned a lot of what the art form requires of you as a writer. And I saw this as one of the questions you were going to ask, who influenced me. I would say who helped me is one person that helped me is Bill McNulty, who was a longtime cast member at the Actors Theater. I don't think he's there anymore. But people remember him as Scrooge, like every year for 20-some years. He had the Dracula franchise for like many years. But he was my personal dramaturg. That's what he called himself. Because we became friends. When I was a reporter, I think I was writing about the arts, and I kind of wrote about him. And then my ex, we were all going to the Y together, and my ex, she was kind of like a real friendly person, and get stuck up a conversation with him, and she said, "Hey, you ought to meet my husband." And he said, "Oh, anytime you want to go to Actors Theater, call me up. I'll get you a ticket." So I started doing that, and then when I wrote my first play, I asked him to read it. Him and Billy Bradford. Billy Bradford, he's like another theater institution. He kind of founded the theater program at YPAS. This is going way back. And then he worked for so many. I think he might still be. He retired twice from YPAS.
Oh, wow.
And then he established the theater program at Trinity. I mean, if you go to that theater, they got like posters of all these musicals, like 50 musicals, and he produced and directed every one of them. But when I did my first play, because it was about a historical figure, he was interested, and he read it and kind of gave me some tips about how to structure the play. So did Bill McNulty. Then when I wrote Jockey Jim, McNulty read that one and kind of gave me some tips. I would say Russell Vanderbilt helped me with that one too.
Okay.
He read it and gave me. But talking about Murder the Devil, Booty of the Year. Bill McNulty read all of them. And then one of the reasons I said that Murder the Devil, I thought was my best play, when I took it to him, we had this routine. I would send him the play and give him a couple of months. Whenever you get time, read it. And then I'm going to take you out to dinner. We go out to have drinks. I'm going to bring a script, and you're going to tell me what's wrong with it. And I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to change it. We went out, man, and he looked at me and he said, well, you've graduated. There's nothing wrong. There's a little this and that and the other about, he said, but no, he was wrong. He said, somebody's going to do this one because this is the best, one of the best ones you've written. I wrote a short called Ken Under the Skin, which is a comedy about reparations for slavery.
Okay.
He said that was one of the best things that I had written. But Bill McNulty, he read everything and helped me. And also Billy Bradford, he directed the the Lewis Coleman musical. He directed both productions of Jockey Jim. I think he directed a couple of the Double V. He's the director I've worked with most, and he's really helped me, influenced me, along with Bill McNulty.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I was wondering, I mean, obviously we're all doing our best to keep it moving in this 2020-2021 world now. I was wondering, how has the current state of the country, our pandemic and the racial uprisings that happened here in Louisville last year, has it changed or influenced how you approach your work?
I did shows about them.
Okay.
I did a show. Well, the last thing that we did was Give Us the Ballot, which was a Get Out the Boat short. It was starring Brian West. It was filmed. We got a grant from the Fund for the Arts, and it was about a historical figure, Russell Lee, who was the second African American elected to the Louisville Board of Aldermen, and it was just about the struggle of black people to get the vote, which was one of the big issues that was driving me up a wall, about the Stacey Abrams thing.
Yeah.
That all of this vote suppression. So I wrote a play about police abuse and how it influences vote suppression called Vote for Me, I'll Set You Free. It's about Leroy Brown, who was a Marine Corps veteran, and he's running to be the first black sheriff in his little hometown. He's running against his former field commander, Pete Cantrell. But the elections he fought to make free and fair in Afghanistan and Iraq, he found out is a dysfunctional shambles in the United States. Some of the guys he fought with, the black guys he fought with, have been moved from the rolls. Polling places have closed down in his neighborhood. Pete Cantrell, the sheriff, is caught still in the election outright and won't step down to try to stay competitive. Leroy hooks up with this shady vote bundler. And it was all these elements that was popping up in the news that I've kind of put into one play. It was a big cast. It was a big cast. It opened up with the shooting of a kid. And this is so Leroy was the only black person in this little department. And his other, the other service people that, the other military veterans that fought with him didn't want to have nothing to do with Pete Cantrell because something that happened in the field. He abandoned them, actually. They were overrun by a militia in Afghanistan, and he couldn't say. He kind of called in the British, but then they faulted him for that and didn't want to have nothing to do. They could have had jobs on the police force, but didn't want to do it. Leroy, he was their sergeant. He kind of understood it best. I mean, he was trying to deal with the situation of being the only black. And then after this shooting, he just, it was all of this was built up, the relationship between the police and the black community in that little town, which represents any town, is frayed. I mean, you have a lot of black on black crime, which gets the police in there, but then you have a lot of bigots and racists on the police department, and they end up like abusing people, and it just drove him up a wall, and then he got fired actually, and that was what prompted him to run against Pete Cantrell.
Okay.
So I sent that around. Like I said, had 17 characters in it. I mean, it was you know, a lot of times you can't think about whether it can be. You just have to do the best you can writing it, and you know that 17 people. You know, there's only a few people going to want to do that. And if you try to put it on, it's going to be a handful. Like the musicals I did, and then I got an opportunity to write one. There was a commission for the Fraser History Museum. They were going to have a play festival because of an election year, and I was one of the people that they selected to do a play. So I came up with the idea: let's do one on this black historical figure, and Russell Lee. And it's all about him being a Republican. He said, I'm not that kind of Republican, the kind that preach hate and lock up innocent children and do everything they can to deny the Negro their citizenship rights, starting with the right to vote. That was the whole theme of that play. It was 15 minutes. We filmed it, and were able to put, you know, this is after everything was locked down, we weren't going to be able to, you know, perform it. Mm-hmm. Fraser had to cancel their festival, but I was able to give them some content to put on their website and work with the actual guy, Brian West. He's the teaching artist.
I know Brian, yeah.
And it was able to work, and so it really worked out. And then Fun for the Arts, they were our main sponsor, and I got to give a shout out First Unitarian Church, who is the place where we do most of our rehearsals, and they were our three main backers. So the pandemic and the you know, that made us, like everybody else, go online, go and film and put it on websites, or go online. I mean, Woody did a whole Zoom production of Looking for Leroy in New York. I had some other little shorts that, you know, there was a bunch of theaters that were doing kind of election year plays, and I was using some of the dialogue, you know, just little sections, maybe a scene or two, and you know, because people want, hey, give me 5 minutes, this got to do with it, you know, so I could pull that out. And the same thing that happened with Give Us the Ballot. I had a lot of the background already done, a lot of the research about how this vote suppression works, a lot of research about combating it. And so I incorporated all that into Give Us the Ballot. And like I said, we had to do it online. We couldn't do it live, but it kind of addressed that issue that was driving me up a wall.
Yeah.
And then we had to do it in a format that was conscious of the pandemic.
Gotcha.
And with all that said, what kind of advice would you give someone trying to pursue a career that's similar to yours?
That's similar to mine as a writer and a producer?
Absolutely, yeah.
I would say go to the African American theater program.
That's right.
And enroll. go. I mean, you know, like I said before, you asked me, what do I wish I had done different, or what did I wish I had known when I started that I know now? I think if I had gone to school, I wouldn't have had such a hard time. I wouldn't have to stumble through so much. Mm-hmm. So if you want to, I mean, that's in just about anything, I guess. If you want to make a profession out of something, go to school. That's where you're going to learn. You're going to get a lot of mentors. You're going to be in an environment of people who are on the same mission as you. You're going to, once you graduate, you're going to be able to do internships through the school. You know, you're going to be able to meet some of you. You're going to be able to go to the National Black Theater. You're going to learn about the National Black Theater Festival. Yeah. You're going to learn about the Atlanta Black Theater Festival. You're going to learn about all of these groups on Facebook through school. Yeah. You won't have to be out there stumbling around trying to figure out, you know, them teachers are going to tell you, this is what you need to do. This is your classwork. It ain't something that you know, you're going to get a grade on this and you better perform too. And or you're going to get failed. You're going to waste your money. But if you want to learn, that's the best environment. If you were in a theater program, the African-American theater program, I would suggest anybody want to get in it.
I think too, yeah, because it also depends on what program you go to, right? So I went to an undergraduate program. It's a private white institute, so I wasn't learning about National Black Theater Festival or August Wilson, and those are things that I had to, one, start learning on my own when I was out there, but then I really got that education that I needed as a Black artist when I came to the AATP.
That's right.
So it was, I mean, it's invaluable.
Nothing wrong with, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you had that undergraduate experience and like in mainstream theater. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to, you know, and the reason that we're focused so much on African-American theater is because it don't get done, and there's so many powerful stories that we are the ones who got to tell. But also, there's there's a line in Looking for Leroy about Shakespeare. Fuck Shakespeare. That's my favorite line. But it's kind of like a conceit. Here's a young brother who is, you know, feeling himself, and he's feeling like, you know, I'm not getting no support as a young Black writer, as a young writer, period. Yeah. Because, you know, but learning August Wilson's, people say that his model was Eugene O'Neill. Eugene O'Neill was like an awesome he was like the first one, I think, to win a Nobel Prize, American playwright. So there's a Sarah Rule. There's just a bunch of playwrights out there. I can't really. I'm trying to think of some that I would name now. David Mamet. I mean, you need to study all of that. Yeah. Not just the Black plays, but you need to, you know, because the form you need to know the form so you can experiment with it. Yeah. You need to know what you're doing over and above telling the Black stories, but then you need to focus on the Black theater. You need to focus on, if you're African American.
Do you feel like that's a double standard in American theater, that, you know, if you're a Black person, that, you know, you need to know, you know, Black theater and white theater? Do you feel like white people also feel like they need to learn Black theater as well?
No, I don't think so.
I don't.
I mean, ain't no need for them to, you know, people say, I remember when I was thinking about the title of how to name our little theater program, Kentucky Black Repertory Theater, and there was some white people say, well, don't call it Black. See, that's a conceit right there. You don't call yours white because all of it's white. It's I mean, and there are people that I admire, Black people that I admire in theater who have been in Broadway and stuff, and after the protests about police brutality, a lot of them, you know, there are movements now of Black people in theater to call white theaters to account. And then there were a lot of white people who are, you know, are now saying we're for social justice and stuff, but they wasn't thinking about that. You know, it's if you can get in there, if you are willing to play a white character. Yeah. You know, I mean, they'll do some August Wilson. They'll do Raisin in the Sun.
Mr. Linder.
Stuff like that, you know, the Black classics. But there's really not that, you know, and they got a lot of white playwrights that they're trying to produce too. So they ain't trying to be that diversified. But so I think it's like, I guess, the Black artist burden, because we have, and that's what part of what Looking for Leroy got into was, what is Black theater? And how is defined and by who? What is the relationship between the Black journalists, their creation, and the Black community in general? And there was a question about whether art should have social impact or whether it should be valued just for its beauty and for, the little insights that you get and stuff. I mean, you ain't. Are you supposed to use that to make a statement against social injustice? Yeah, that's part of what Black theater is about. Now, are you supposed to know the form and stuff? You study it, a lot of great examples in European theater, African theater, Asian theater. Then when you talk about our community and our needs as a community, Black art have to contribute to helping our people.
Mm-hmm. Got you. All
so
right.
I guess it is a double standard. It's a burden, I guess, on the Black artist. You have to know all of it and then apply it to our particular situation.
Got you. All right, I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and then we've got a couple of wrap-up questions for you. But, I mean, I definitely could not overlook the fact that you said you were involved with, the Panthers out there in California, and Amiri. So I was wondering if you've seen Judas and the Black Messiah yet, and if you had thoughts on it.
No, I haven't.
I haven't.
That whole thing about Fred Hampton, that was... When I was working at the Defender, it was kind of in the aftermath of that. I think I was at the Defender maybe about 78.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that Fred Hampton got killed in the early 70s.
Yeah,
and he
late
was one
60s.
of the main leaders of the Black Panther Party. I mean, stronger to a lot of people than Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. He was, coming out of Chicago, which is like, Oakland, California ain't nothing compared to Chicago. You know what I'm saying? The people and the quality of, the way that, I guess the way that the city shapes you, if you're a resident of that city, is the first Black congressman after Reconstruction came out of Chicago. There's a reason that the first Black president came out of Chicago. Mm. It's so politically organized and so concentrated with Black people, and it's a magnet for a whole lot of talent. Mm. And then, if you like the Defender was the strongest Black newspaper. I was so proud that the legacy of the Defender. Zora Neale Hurston wrote for the Defender. I'm trying. I can't think of the names of different people, but Just Be Simple. Who did Just Be Simple? Langston Hughes wrote for it. Richard Wright. It was when they were younger. The Defender. This is in the days of segregation. The Defender was one of the few outlets that Black writers would have.
And this was out of Chicago?
This is like 40s.
I say the Defender was in Chicago, right?
Yeah, in Chicago. Yeah, Chicago Defender. The daily. It was like the first daily newspaper I worked for.
IWB Wells probably.
When I was there, we were all covering. Fred Hampton's family had suits against, and this is like a big controversy. And I remember this guy. His name was Henry Hand. I can't think of his first name, but he was. And I don't want to confuse what his position was, but he okayed or led that raid. It was kind of like the Breonna Taylor thing. They bust into a dude's house while he was sleeping. Mm. Although he was like a strong, and the Panthers were revolutionaries. They, how they got started, they would follow the police around in Oakland because Oakland police had a lot of Klansmen in them, and they would follow them around with shotguns and law books when they were rolling through the Black community abusing people. And Huey Newton eventually went to prison for shooting a white police officer in Oakland. But yeah, when I was in Chicago, the Fred Hampton family, we wrote a whole lot about that in the Little Defender.
Got you.
It's still, people still, they made a movie about it. That was it was like one of the foulest things that happened in Chicago law enforcement, and was a great loss to our community, a leader like Fred Hampton. Very articulate brother, dedicated, just devoted to the movement.
Very young, too. Very young guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to talk about?
The one that we hope we're gonna keep you involved with about the James Baldwin. You can play the James Baldwin.
Listen, I'm ready too.
They were talking about. We had a meeting of the playwrights. So we're talking about Derby City Playwrights.
Okay.
It's This is sixth season, and it's just a bunch of. It's 8 of us. It's like, and I was telling them like we could really got a diverse. And I suggested to them that they try to do some fundraising with the Fund for the Arts, because Fund for the Arts has like a diversity grant. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, we got 2 Black playwrights. We got a transgender playwright. We got, my play is about a Black historical figure. We got women, plays with strong women characters. We got a play about mental illness. But anyway, so I'm one of the 8 playwrights, and my play about James Baldwin is it's about getting old and dying, So the synopsis goes that James Baldwin is writing himself into bad health. What is it? After 2 heart attacks and being hospitalized for some, he returns home, and he's going to, because he's in need of some, to be around his people and be, he globetrotting, and he was like with all these big celebrities and stuff. He wanted to like come home and be around his people, and this bar that he hangs up, nightclub, McHale's. It was Upper West Side, New York. His brother is the main bartender there. And when Jimmy comes to town, he goes there, and it was a magnet for all these big celebrities, from Toni Morrison to Whitney Houston got her start there, Wynton Marsalis, Harry Belafonte. It was all these people would come through there, especially when Jimmy was in town, because James Baldwin, man, was... People are talking about him now a lot, so I hope that kind of gives the project a little traction, a little attention. But yeah, it's about James Baldwin, and he's going, and it's only 4 characters, and the main characters are Baldwin, Maya Angelou, I was looking for celebrities who were like close friends of his who frequented that place. Maya Angelou had an apartment that was right around the corner from it. Miles Davis came in there all the time. He got band members and stuff out of there from the house band. I mean, it was just a place where, and so it's about the end of that place, the closing of McHale's, and it was about Baldwin kind of, he's having health issues that he's trying to deny or not deny. He doesn't deny them. He ain't letting them get in the way of his work and the way of his lifestyle. He ain't stopped drinking and smoking 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day and drinking a 5th of scotch. Or you didn't hardly see James Baldwin without a cigarette in his mouth. But and Maya Angelou is she's a good friend of his. I mean, if you read some her biographies and stuff, she talks about how James Baldwin kind of introduced her to his family. They thought that it was kind of like a romance, but they were really close. They met when they were young, and they were right at the launch of the civil rights movement, and they would into that. Both of them was really into that, and he kind of introduced herself to the family, to his mother and to his siblings, as this is your new sister. And they always kept in touch with each other. And then Miles Davis was another one of his friends that they would just hit it off. They admired each other greatly. And when Miles would go to the south of France, this is where St. Paul de Vence, where Baldwin had his chateau around Nice. he would always stop in there, man, and like, just hang out. And then, they would find themselves at different parties together. And, one of the little wrinkles is like, nobody would, they were little short, little black dudes. Mm-hmm. So the colored people who were more fair skinned, and the white people would be talking to them, and so that's how they started talking to each other. They admired each other, but they didn't get the attention maybe that a Harry Belafonte would get. Uh-huh. But at any rate, so it's these people and David Baldwin, who is Baldwin's brother, and it's all about, it's kind of like not a docudrama, but like a biodrama or something. It reviews a lot of the high points of Baldwin's career, and then there's a conflict in it about, they don't want to stop him from writing, but like David, no, he's really sick. But what we're trying to do is just make his last days as comfortable as possible. If he want to write, we're going to, that's what Miles said. You ain't going to stop him from writing. Because what happens, so when they get there to the club, they're thinking it's going to be a bunch of people there. It's closed. Nobody could get in touch with Maya. She was traveling. Baldwin was in France. And by the time they get there, it's closed. And then he just impulsively starts writing a eulogy, an obituary for this place. And this is the very thing that we're trying to not get you not to do. Can you stop writing for a minute and just chill? And that's what a lot of the conflict is about.
Got you. Okay. Well, then we're getting ready to wrap up. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us that we haven't asked you today?
No, man. I feel like I said too much already. I don't know, man. I appreciate the opportunity, to promote my work and to tell my story, man. And I look at myself like I'm a brother out here trying to make a contribution. I try to, as a journalist and as a theater artist, I try to use my work to make a contribution, and that's what I hope came across in our conversation.
Definitely. I was wondering, is there any place that our listeners can connect with you online? Do you have social media accounts?
Yeah, just on Facebook. Yeah, Larry Muhammad. And there is a Kentucky Black Repertory Theater page that I don't really manage that well, but okay. I'm always there on Larry Muhammad. I respond to that.
Sounds good. Well, everyone, Larry, thank you so much again for being here with us today. Again, this has been the African American Theater Program's The Beat Black Entertainment. This has been the African American Theater Program's The Beat Black Experience in Art and Theater. Thank you for listening.